Language awareness, phonology, connected speech. For this input, you'll be asked to do a couple of activities with a partner or group, so best that you are all together for this one, or at the very least, with your partner. We're going to look at what happens to sounds in normal speech and describe the changes that occur. Let's think about listening and speaking for native English speakers. Have a look at the questions on this slide. Pause the video and have a quick chat with your group or partner to see if you can guess the answers. How quickly do fluent speakers speak to each other? Well, it's a fairly big range, but the slowish comprehensible speed of BBC English is about 180 words per minute. How fast are the little words? Auxiliary verbs, determiners, conjunctions, pronouns. What's the WPM? This may surprise you. The WPM for the little words is faster than 500 words a minute. Try saying, "I've been doing a lot of it." You should manage this in a second or less, and that equals about 480 words per minute. What is the average time gap between hearing something in a conversation and replying? The answer to this is half a second. So, what is connected speech? Well, when native or fluent speakers speak, we often link words together. And when we do this, individual sounds of these words change and become quite different from how they would sound in isolation and in their fully stressed forms. Students can study Lexis and how to transcribe words in IPA, so they know what they are and what they sound like. Yet, when it comes to listening to speech in a normal flow, they have trouble understanding it. So fast speech is such a challenge for learners because when words are delivered in a stream of speech, they link up, so the boundaries are unclear. They can't hear where one word ends and the next one begins. They all run together into a blur. While it's a good goal for students to produce connected speech, they should also try to understand it, and so we as teachers need to be aware of the possible pitfalls students may face in terms of comprehension. Catenation. Have a look at the picture on this slide. Pause the video and quickly discuss with your group or partner what the possible comprehension error here is caused by. So you probably came up with, it's difficult to decide where one word stops and the next word starts. Have a look at this example. Get in the car with Mike's dog. How easy is this to read compared to get in the car with Mike's dog? What does this tell us about fast speech? It tells us that even if the vowel sounds don't change, not being sure where the word ends makes recognition difficult. Catenation is about the way words are linked, like in a chain. Intrusion, also known as liaison, is another common feature of connected speech. Look at the following in phonemic script on this slide. What are the actual words? Pause the video and refer to this part on your task sheet. See if you can work out the words with your partner or group. So hopefully you came up with he is, they are, and she always takes my arm. You may have noticed there were some sounds there that, upon first sight, look like they don't belong there, and may have caused confusion when you were trying to work out what the words were. What happens at the boundary between the words in each of those three utterances? Well, you probably saw that we insert a y sound to join the vowels. He is. They are. She always takes my yarn. This is a type of connection called intrusion. But intrusion isn't just the y sound. We'll look at what other intrusive sounds there are in the next example. Can you work out what this is? Pause the video and work out this next utterance with your partner, group, or individually. So hopefully you came up with, you are obviously unhappy about the idea of it. What other intrusives can you find here? So you can see them highlighted in blue on the slide. Other than the y sound, you may also have seen that the r and w sounds snuck in between the words that wouldn't have necessarily been there if those words weren't said together quickly in connected speech. This may depend on where you're from, however. People from the UK, for example, would say ARE as ah, with no sound at the end, whereas people from the US might say ARE as R, in which case the sound in between R and obviously might not be defined as intrusive. However, as a general rule, the three phonemes which occur in intrusion are r, w, and y. Intrusives are basically an extra sound that we tend to sneak in between two vowel sounds. But why do we have intrusives in English? It's to allow smooth connection and to maintain rhythm as we speak. Intrusives help us glide more easily from one vowel sound to another. Look at some further examples here. Instead of saying two of us, we would have the intrusive w sound to make it easier. Two of us. Instead of saying me and you, we'd have the intrusive y sound to help us. So, me and you. For Tina and I, we might have the intrusive r to help us say this more easily. Tina and I. Now look at this slide on elision and at the examples of phrases written orthographically on the left and in IPA on the right. Can you identify the features of connected speech which occur in these phrases? Pause the video and discuss this with your partner or group now. You may have seen that there's a sound missing. So when we quickly and naturally say, next please, the t in next isn't really pronounced. Nor is the d sound in stand when we say, stand there. While other letters can also be what we call elided, such as the I sound in cabinet, where we'd actually say cabinet, the t and d sounds tend to be the ones dropped most often in connected speech, although they would be pronounced fully in the isolated word. For example, stand or next. Now, let's look at assimilation, which is another feature of connected speech. What happens to the sounds in these words? Try to write your ideas in IPA. Pause the video and do this on your worksheet now. Now, this is a hotly contested area, so not everyone is going to say the words the same way, but try to keep an open mind and an open ear to see what the concept of assimilation in connected speech is. Assimilation is basically the influence of one sound on another. And this sometimes happens because it's easier for our articulators to change the original sound by perhaps changing the place of articulation in order to make the utterance easier to say. Try saying the utterance, I have to go, but where you pronounce have with the v sound as opposed to the f sound. You should find it's easier to say have to as opposed to have to, because the t sound in to influences the previous sound. It's easier to say the unvoiced f and link it to, which starts with another unvoiced sound, than it is to go from the voiced have to the unvoiced to. For weak forms, again, have a look at the corresponding part of your task sheet for this slide. Look at the words underlined in each sentence pair. What do you notice about how they're pronounced in each sentence? Pause the video and work on this task with your partner or group now. So, I'll read them out. Let's have fish and chips. How do you spell and? I told them I wasn't going. Give her the ticket. No, give it to them. I know that it's not easy for her. I told her that. You might as well ask the cat. As your boss, I'm telling you it's not good enough. She was playing football, I suppose. Yes, she was. You should have noticed that the first of each pair is what we call a weak form, and in the second, the word is in its strong form, where it is stressed. When in their weak forms, unstressed syllables can become unrecognizable from their stressed counterparts. So, what kinds of words have strong and weak forms? Monosyllabic auxiliaries, determiners, conjunctions, pronouns, essentially functional and non-content words, tend to have strong and weak forms. And when is the strong form used? We use the strong form when the word is stressed because we want to give more meaning to that word, either for emphasis or for contrast. Unstressed words usually have the weak forms, and a large majority of these end up being the schwa sound. So before we wrap up, a quick quiz. Match the connected speech feature on the left with its definition on the right. Pause the video and do this now. You should have got these answers. Catenation refers to the way words are linked like a chain, and it makes it hard to know where one word ends and the next begins, like the key pout example. Intrusion is the addition of a phoneme which wouldn't be there if the words were spoken in isolation. Elision is the omission of a phoneme, usually the t or d sounds. Assimilation is the influence of one sound on another, where a sound might actually change depending on what follows it. And finally, we have weak forms, which is when unstressed syllables become unrecognizable to non-native speakers. They might know what the word and means, but when they hear it in an expression like fish and chips, they can't recognize it. You'll find other rules for linkage on page 5 of your task sheet for your reference. So now, tidy up your notes, highlight any information or concepts you wish to clarify, and please do raise any questions you might have about this input at the next OT. Thanks for listening, and have a good week.